Hello, everybody. Yay. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I know, thank you, Jay, for pointing it out. I did see the Cryptid Huntress in the top section. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I did change it, but when you change it, it doesn't change it on here now. So forgive my typo there. I hate doing that, but hey, sometimes I'm not perfect. I try to be. Jessica, yay! Welcome back. I'm so happy to have you back. How are you today, beautiful lady?
Oh, thank you. I am so excited to be here. I'm doing great, doing really well. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. We had you on 2 weeks ago, and that was so fun. And I'm definitely having you on again. So I don't think today is the last because there's too many other things to talk about. So I hope you'll agree to be back in the future as well. And I'm loving seeing everybody in the chat. Bryce is on our Whack-A-Troll.
Hey, Bryce.
Doing the moderation, yeah, and lots of new faces in here, which must be your followers that are in here as well today. So it's really great to see everybody. Welcome, and I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic chat because we're talking about the Dogman sightings, the Alaska Triangle, and Earth's weaponized portals. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure that you probably do, but just for any newbies on the show, Jessica is an amazing remote viewer, and she remote views a whole lot of things, and a lot of them also obviously stuff that we're going to be chatting about as well. So over to you, beautiful lady. What do you have to tell us about all of that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I know I have a whole repertoire of things that I've remote viewed and things that I'm interested in too. And I think it's cool that we're talking about, I guess the three topics today, we're going to touch on the Alaska Triangle, the Dogman, and Earth's weaponized portals. And those are all things that I have looked into extensively. I have been given blind coordinate remote viewing targets for something that pertains to each of those over the past couple of years or several years actually, and it's really interesting because they all connect too. So not all, but
yeah, I would imagine there's always a thread that binds everything, right?
There is. Yeah. Well, one of my favorite topics. Okay, I guess we could talk about. Well, I was going to start off with the Dogman, but we can't start off with we can start off with any of them. Because the Alaska Triangle actually has a whole lot that it entails. There's a lot going on there. And for I know that you're down in South Africa. I'm up here in the United States. Alaska is part of the United States. Okay, I'm sure everybody knows that. But it's way up north. Okay, near the North Pole, pretty much. And there's so much high strangeness in Alaska going on in it and around Alaska. And in the middle of Alaska, there is an area called the Alaska Triangle. And for whatever reason, the wildlife in this area is way more violent against humans and other animals. I think I know why.
What type of wildlife is predominantly in the Alaska Triangle? What are we? Bears? I would imagine bears would be something.
They have bears. Cats, a lot of like apex predators are in Alaska. It's a very dangerous place to be. And not only are the animals dangerous, but the geography, the topography, everything about Alaska it'll kill you. Okay. It's like everything out there is just super duper dangerous. Okay. And the weather too, because it's sub-zero conditions, of course. So it's very cold there. Arctic weather, actually. So yeah. It's a place of high strangeness, and the cryptids do not disappoint there. And by cryptids, I mean animals that have not been recognized by science yet. Okay, wow. And but the stories are endless. The stories are endless. The firsthand accounts of stories there are endless. And I just so happen to have a friend named Fred. Fred sent me a message right before the show. He commented on, I had posted that I was going to be speaking on your show today. And he was like, "Oh, the Alaska Triangle, never heard of it." Okay, but he's actually an Indigenous there. He is a elder of his tribe there, the Kuriung tribe in Alaska, and he has passed down. He has had oral tradition passed down to him And people come to him, the locals, the community, they come to him to tell him about the stories they've had with the Alaska hairy man and the little people, little people there.
Little people, what are we talking about? Like little pygmies, or what are we talking about when we talk to little people?
Yes, well, you could call them like pygmies, basically, but there's kind of I guess they're a tribe, I guess you would say, like their own little tribe. And there's probably a lot of them, but the one that I actually looked into specifically was given to me as a target, a remote viewing target, where I incinerate little people. And if you go online, if you're a fan of TikTok, okay, especially, and this is really interesting because there are a lot of videos on TikTok of all places of firsthand sightings, videos, you know, and it's hard. Yes, it is hard to tell these days what is real and what is AI. You know, a lot of artificial intelligence programs are making these videos. You can kind of tell, you know, especially people like myself who have been doing this for a long time, and we get sent a lot of evidence of, you know, cryptids and especially Bigfoot and Dogman. But it is hard to tell sometimes what's real and what's not. But on TikTok, there are videos going around about the incinerate people, and they're very creepy. Okay, very creepy looking. And in those TikTok videos, which are, you know, all you gotta do is type in incinerate people. They're about, I'm going to say they're about 2 to 3 feet tall. Okay, 2 to 3 feet tall. And they're wearing masks. Very sinister looking. And what the story that goes behind the incinerate people is that they.
How do I spell that? How do I spell that?
IRCERRAT. IRCENRRAT. Incinerate. I think I'm pronouncing that right. IRCERRAT. Yes, incinerate people.
Okay, I'm just going to post that in the chat, so if anyone wants to.
Yes, please do, because it's really cool. But it pretty much tells the story of a group of little people. Let's see, I've got some better notes here. Let me see if I can find them real quick. And because I don't want to leave anything out. Because I remote viewed them, and the thing about remote viewing is sometimes I'm given these targets, and you know, people, whoever tasked me with these targets, they've heard the stories, you know, they've been told that they're real, but I'm given specific targets of specific incidents that happen with people who encounter them. Okay, and I can say through this target, I do believe they are real. And I have seen pictures, and I show those on my show at the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. You guys can go check those out. Okay, if you'd like to see that show, it's called the Alaska Triangle, and it's got a picture of 2 of the little people on the thumbnail there. Okay, so they're a race of miniature human-like creatures with extraordinary powers. They live in a different dimension, is what some people say. Now, I think that they're just able to utilize Earth's natural portals, just like all the cryptids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but some people think, but that's very supernatural. If you don't understand that we do have these portals here, it becomes very supernatural. But they're often seen. They're spotted hunting and gathering food, and they have a reputation of being very good craftsmen. However, don't ever follow them or accept help from them, okay? Because they're known to lure humans deep into the woods, into the forest, and they trick them. They usually play instruments, or they have some sort of frequency that's almost hypnotizing.
Sound, again, always sound, right? Always sound, because when you talk, I mean, when you're talking to anyone that's done this kind of work, and especially when, you know, like the SRA survivors and stuff like that, when you're talking about how they open up spiritual gates and close them, it's always with music, sound, voices. A lot of these kids that have been weaponized have got the most incredible voices, actually. So.
Well, they have musical instruments that they like to play, and when they lure the humans off the trail, they usually will string that. It's said that they string them up into a tree, and they throw rocks at them until they are unalived, as we say on YouTube.
That's quite gruesome. So they're quite a gruesome little bunch.
Yeah, they are, and they leave them there for the wildlife to feed on. Okay, so now can this be just a cautionary tale?
It's like a sacrifice to the animals.
Yes, that's what it seems like.
Wow.
Now, these stories have been passed down for many, many years about the Itinerant people. However, there are people also that are actually seeing them and have encountered them. So my target was to actually find out if they were real. I did find out. I do believe they are real. The data did show that they appear to be real, and it's not only the little people, okay, that are potentially a cause for some of these missing people. Okay, because Alaska has so many missing people. I believe it's like over 20,000 people have gone missing, at least since the 1980s, out of Alaska. There's an epidemic, and we have an epidemic here in the United States of people going missing, especially out of federal lands. And we talked about this the last time I came on your show, because that's a big part of why I do what I do, is to bring attention to that, of all the missing people out of our state parks and our national parks here. And it's no different there. They have over 2,500, that's 2,500 people that go missing every year in Alaska. And I do believe that, I don't think that this is the majority of people that go missing is because of the little people, but could be a couple or a few. It could absolutely.
Yeah, it would seem to me that obviously with all the different portals and things, and I mean with a triangle there, and isn't Area 51 there as well?
They have something like Area 51. Well, they have the Alaska. They have the Dark Pyramid there. Okay, we have something called the Dark Pyramid.
Yeah.
I have remote viewed that. Actually, that was given to me as a target along with my friend. I have a friend who is a remote viewer. I have a lot of friends that are remote viewers, but my friend Tanya, she was given this target too. And we actually came together and did a show together with our friend Barry, who is the one who gave us this target. And we both were picking up on a gigantic pyramid, huge, covered in black obsidian, some sort of black substance on it. It was like a hard stone. I actually wrote down the word obsidian in my data. And she was also picking up on it. Like, I was getting kind of more of the outside of what it was, what it looked like in my data. She was getting more of a view of the inside of what's going on here. Now, we both picked up that there is a gigantic power source, a gigantic generator, and this is a blind target, so we didn't know what we were looking at. She was actually picking up on hieroglyphics, or either I was. We were picking up on something that looked like hieroglyphics written and sketched into the outside and the inside, but it wasn't Egyptian. It was something that looked Egyptian, but different.
But it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. We also
now,
picked up.
Is that obsidian? That's was it the crystal, the obsidian crystal?
Yes.
Because that's the obsidian is really the obsidian you would use to keep negative energies away. Though oftentimes it's to repel negative energies.
Well, this is really interesting, because I was picking up, and I think we both did, that it was very ancient. And I'm not talking about hundreds of years. We're talking a million or more years.
Yeah,
is what I picked up. Yeah, at least a million. I think it was probably older than that. But so we were not only picking up on this gigantic pyramid, some sort of power source that is heavily armed and protected, okay, by military agencies. I don't know, some sort of force was guarding it, but it also was just as big facing down and pointing into the ground as it is on the outside, which is actually kind of buried. But it actually is pointing down. I want to say like a Merkaba kind of. And and so it's not only powering up, it's powering going down into the earth as well. So, and we hear about all these underground bases, okay? And that's something that you and I talked about the last time I was here. We've kind of deducted, we think that we've concluded that it could be a power generating source for whatever's going on underground too. So, but it's very ancient. There's something important about it.
So the pyramid is inverted. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Because usually the pyramid in its normal way would take energy outwards and upwards, so up and around type thing. So now it's inverted. So it's obviously taking energy underneath the ground, right? It would be drawing that to under the ground. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think so.
It's obviously powering something. You know, it would be powering something. Do you think it's using the energy of the sun?
It could be. Absolutely. Well, and we have a lot of violent animals and things that are just irritated up there and are more violent against humans, especially in that Alaska Triangle section of Alaska. And it is my conclusion, especially from all this data, that, you know, I believe that they're upset because there's some sort of frequency weapons being used up there. And we have what's called HARP. HARP is located up there. The weather manipulation, all of these, it's mostly like weather manipulation, and certain frequencies and vibrations are being put off that us humans probably can't hear with our ears, but our bodies can detect it. And you got to think of along the lines of animals and dogs, for instance. You know, they can hear a dog whistle, but we can't because it's at that pitch, that frequency. Well, there's no telling what kind of just horrible sounds and things are coming out of these weather weapons, basically.
It makes so much sense what you're saying there, especially with HARP being there. And these guys we know, I mean, the technology that we are shown on this planet is nothing. It's like they're 100 years around about ahead of us with technology anyway. Maybe not quite 100, but I would say many years ahead of us that we don't even know about these technologies. So they're using it to manipulate the weather, and especially if it's in that sensitive area. And as you say, if they're using it to distort the energies, to steal the frequencies, to manipulate frequencies, of course it's going to affect the animals to make them more aggressive. I just hope the animals turn on them.
Well, apparently they do. There are a lot of attacks that happen up there, and including Sasquatch attacks. Okay, and Bigfoot. That's a big thing. My friend Fred that I had mentioned earlier, who has a great channel on YouTube called Subarctic Alaska Sasquatch. And if you'd like firsthand encounters of the hairy man, just from sightings to attacks to, I mean, he was even attacked with his uncle and his cousin when he was younger. They were basically kept captive kind of in a little cabin, a hunting cabin all night, and terrorized one night by the Alaska hairy men up there. There was more than one too.
Is that like the Sasquatch, the hairy man, the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, right? Are we talking Bigfoot here?
Yes, we're talking Bigfoot, and there's so many different types of Bigfoots. The hairy man is, I guess it's the same as a Sasquatch. Now, I call them Bigfoots. Okay, I call them Bigfoots. Everybody's got a different name for them, and it just depends. And like I said, they're different types. Some are more human-looking, some are more chimpanzee-looking, some look more like an ape. But they all have human characteristics, but they do look like apes a little bit. Some of them. But yeah, the hairy man, I mean, we also have wild men. It could be similar to that but see, in Alaska, they usually have more hair. So I would definitely assume because it's so cold up there.
Yeah, they would need to cover their body.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this is just right outside of the Alaska Triangle. Now, these reports go all the way back hundreds of years of having Sasquatch attacks or sightings. So we can't blame HARP in the weather manipulation weapons or whatever you want to call them. We can't blame all the attacks on that, of course, okay, because it was before those things were even put there, probably. But there's a little town in Alaska right outside of the Alaska Triangle, and it's called Chatham or Portlock, Alaska. Fort Chatham or Portlock. And all of the Bigfoot field researchers and Bigfoot enthusiasts, most of us know the story about the Bigfoots up there and what happened to that town. An entire town evacuated because of attacks on them by Bigfoot. We're talking about an entire town, an entire village was evacuated, and that nobody ever went back. I can't remember the year. I guess it was in the early 1900s. I mean, it was sometime in the 1900s. Okay, 20th century. There was a cannery built. Okay, a cannery, a fishery. They went in and built a big factory in this little area. totally pretty much uninhabited, except for by some of the indigenous people there. But this area was almost uninhabited. They built a cannery there where they were pretty much taking the resources, of course, of whatever was living there, including the Sasquatch. And I guess the Sasquatch, of course, I would be mad too if somebody came in and started using up all of our resources and eating all of our fish, taking all the fish and setting up shop there right in your backyard. But they were right there on the coast. And so it brought people in, of course. People came, started building log homes, little cabins. A town was started there. They had a post office with a postmaster. They had people that would just set up. It was men and women and children. There's all sorts of people there. And
how many people are we talking? I mean,
we're talking, I'm gonna say a couple hundred or so. I don't know. It's not a huge town. It was just a village. Okay. And it was a little weird out there. Okay. Because people would go into the woods and they would never come back. And people would report seeing big, hairy humans, but gigantic, like 12-foot tall creatures peeking out from the tree line sometime at them. And it was really scary at times, but those people were living there. They were making a living, and they had set up shop there. And as some of the guys would go in the woods, because they had to cut down trees to build their houses with and stuff, and they would go into the woods, they wouldn't come back. And then body parts would start washing up on shore, from a leg to a head, arms. I think at one point in a short span of time, 30 people went missing, and their body parts kept washing up down the river and on shore.
So this would have then been these Sasquatches or giants or whatever really annoyed with humans stealing their resources, because of course as humans always will go and settle, and we will colonize anything that we can.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So taking the resources, so it would make sense that the, call it the Sasquatch, whatever family of Sasquatch it was, would then be getting really pissed off with them and like taking them out, like, get out of here, this is our food, you know, who the hell are you, move, you know. And then of course if the humans were not listening and were not complying with them, then they would start taking them out.
Yes. Wow. That's right. Well, I was tasked with a blind remote viewing target of the incident, whatever happened to that town. Okay, why the people left, what was attacking them. I mean, I don't remember exactly how they worded the target, but it had something. It was about what happened with those people that had gone missing, and it was a blind target. I'm just given a set of numbers, and I was writing down all this stuff. This data was coming through about a pod, a clan of, I guess it was like a clan of Bigfoots. Okay, I called them a pod. A pod is like what you call whales, like whales, yeah. I think, or dolphins. I don't remember. But pod was in my data. I remember that, and I remember, and the data included territory, and there was a what they called the, okay, I know we probably shouldn't say this on YouTube, but the kill line. Okay, there was a line. So basically they had a line that the Sasquatch there had drawn in the woods, and they were like, okay, if anybody crosses this line, they're fair game, and we will take them out. Okay, so anybody who came into those woods and they crossed that line, that territory marker that they had, their invisible line, they were fair game, and they were taken out, and they were eaten as well. I know that sounds horrible, but it was kind of, they would discard their bodies to prove a point and to scare the people off. And eventually it got so bad, like I think I'd mentioned about 30 people had gone missing, and some of them, their parts were found and stuff. And so actually one of the elders there said, we're out of here. Everybody has to leave. Like we can't keep taking these losses. This is too dangerous. It's gotten way too dangerous out here. So within a month, everybody was out of there. Within a week or so, people left. And I believe the only person that stayed behind was the postmaster, who stayed there for 1 year by himself there. Wow. Until he could finally get everything shut down. And nobody, I think some of their family members did try to go back and live there. I don't think it was successful. I would not want to live there There's even been a TV show about it. I know my friend Ron Moorhead took a trip up there, who to me is like the godfather of Bigfoot. Okay. And but they went, he said it had a terrible energy up there about it. But yeah, that they eventually they all got sorry, my dog's scratching over there. Sorry if you can hear that. But eventually they all left. It was evacuated. So and my remote viewing data was showing that it was the Sasquatch, the hairy people that were doing that up there.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So are you saying that pretty much there are still military, shadow military, call them the shadow military, people that are still hanging around there doing their thing in those areas?
If I had to take a wild guess, I would say yes. Yeah, I'm sure. I think they're probably everywhere. I mean, we get reports, and people on my team have actually been out in the woods at National Forest doing Bigfooting, and men wearing full police gear, bulletproof vests, SWAT gear, rifles, everything, come out of the woods, and they say, well, what are y'all doing here? And they look at my guys and they say, well, we're doing the same thing you're doing. And they know that they're there doing Bigfooting and stuff. So, yeah, I think there's well, and plus we've got the Dark Pyramid there. There's all sorts of strange things going on in Alaska. So I would not see why not.
That pyramid there to me is very interesting, especially if it's inverted. And, because pyramids will usually draw energy up and out. Right. And this one would be obviously taking it down and out, right, and dispersing it into whatever's going on underneath there. So I'd be very interested to see what is really going on underneath that pyramid. Have you actually seen anything that goes on there?
Well, we were just picking up on it being active now, and it's being used for some purpose, but we don't know exactly what. See, because when we get into, as remote viewers, when we get into a place like that, and these are blind targets, and we see that there is some sort of military stuff going on or whatever, we don't stay in there very long, because that's something we should not be doing.
Is it military personnel that's using it, or is it more like the hairy Sasquatches that are using it, or whatever?
Humans.
The small people? Okay, so it
was more human. Yeah.
Energy.
Yeah.
Because
Sasquatch
I'm sure
not using it.
Yeah. I'm sure there's underground bunkers or tunnels or cities or something that are active there, and they're probably using the or the earth, the atmosphere, or the light, or the solar energy, or something like that from above, and taking it down into probably charging whatever it is that they're doing. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's what I think. Yeah, that's what I think. I don't have all my data sitting here in front of me, but I do believe that it had something to do with that, because it does have, like I mentioned last time I was here, there's a lot of these targets that I'm given do have connections to underground bases and underground facilities, and this one is no different. Definitely no different. And I'm sure the Alaska Triangle is full with all that high strangeness there. There's something going on underground there, as well as above ground.
Sure. Do you think that the military would be maybe capturing some of these Sasquatches or whatever family it's from and experimenting on them? Or do you think that that's what, have you ever seen anything like that there?
Oh yeah, I think that they're weaponizing them and probably working with them. And I know for people who aren't familiar with cryptids and don't watch my shows, you probably think I sound like a crazy person. However,
oh my God, that would make perfect sense. Wow.
Yeah, our governments and our militaries weaponize anything. They weaponize everything. And some people say that there is a Dogman and Sasquatch and werewolf breeding program here in the United States. There have been people that have come forward. There's one gentleman that's come forward and admitted that he's been a part of that program since the 1950s. And the Dogmen, the werewolves, and the Sasquatch have been used in our wars, just like the World War II. Most notably, the Vietnam War. And what he says is they had sent werewolves into some of the underground the caverns and the tunnel systems in Vietnam to go wipe out the opposition. So now whether that's true
about drugs, right? We know the Vietnam War was all about drugs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the war was about. It was the war for drugs, by the way, if anyone didn't know that. Wow. That is amazing to hear, because it would make perfect sense that these animals, or these cryptids rather, let me not call them animals, that they are being weaponized for those nefarious purposes. So talk to me then about the Dogman and obviously the werewolves, because from what I understand as well, and what Jesse has told us, a lot of the werewolves are literally, I mean, like your ex-president, the bushy one, the father, bushy father, okay, his nickname was Timber. And it was a known fact amongst people that he was a shapeshifter. So he would turn into one of these werewolf creatures of the night and literally more little boys. That was, that's been spoken about on some of the interviews I've done. So he used to transform into, and I mean, my question at the time was, what do these guys do? Do they just like sit and howl at the moon? And it was an absolute no, because they are generally the protectors of the system as well. So the ones that protect the mothers of darkness and whoever else needs protection, that they're like their bodyguards. So certain times they then shapeshift into these creatures of the night and then go and do what they need to do to take people out or whatever it is they do. So I'd be interested. And also the vampires. I mean, there's a whole lot of vampires and stuff as well. And it's known that Johnny Depp, in fact, is part of the vampire lineage as well. So a lot of their victims, young girls, their groupies and stuff would be used. And I mean, I asked, well, do they like sink their teeth into their necks? It's not really, no, not necessarily, but they would draw blood and pretty much have used these young girls as blood banks, basically. So I'm not sure how that fits in with everything there, but I'd be very interested to know what you're saying about how what they're doing in these werewolf breeding programs, because it's called lipocathy. The whole thing, the changing shape is called lipocathy or something like that. I might have it wrong. But the whole where the guys change, literally transform into these werewolves. So there's that. So there's the human going into that shape-shifting scenario. So are you saying that they're like literally creating these creatures just to be werewolves? It's not necessarily all the time humans then shape-shifting.
Well, there's different types. Okay, so there's a distinguished Dogman and there's also the werewolf. Okay, so these are different things, and some people will argue about it, and there's a lot of debate amongst the community members of people who look into these things, and everybody thinks they know. Okay, but really we don't know until these things are paraded out on a stage, and they're never going to do that. And by them I mean like our government or whoever, because I do believe that they are working in conjunction with the cryptids. Why would they not weaponize them? And people have been coming forward. I have some people that are very credible that I've talked with who say that this is true. But we do have, so some people say, and so there, and like I said, this is debatable, but there are the Dogmen, which are either indigenous to the earth. Okay, they're here. They've been here for a long time. And when you actually go on old world maps, they do have dog-headed men listed on these maps. And they also, I mean, if you go back and do some research, you can find that Saint Christopher was said to be a dog-headed man. And the cynocephali, I think, is what they call them. And so it's a little different than werewolves. Now, Dogmen are sighted even to this day. I mean, I do shows on Dogmen all the time. I just did a show this past week on the Palmyra werewolves out of Maine. That's in the northeastern part of the United States. These are wolf packs of bipedal wolves. These are wolves that are like 7 feet tall that walk on 2 legs. They look like wolves and they have human-like hands. And this was recent.
A kind of a hybrid then. It would make sense that they're almost like a hybrid, right? If they've got the human hands and stuff. And if we're looking at, obviously, them, or some of them also shape-shifting from humans then into
well,
werewolves.
that would be werewolves. Okay, so that's something a little different. Yeah, so we got the dogmen that are born dogmen and stay dogmen and women. And then we have the werewolves. Well, some people say that werewolves are born. Okay, and they're born a werewolf and always, but other people say no, they're actually humans who shapeshift into a werewolf. And then we also have the third aspect, which are skinwalkers, or the Yinatalushi as well, which are a type of skinwalker that can be like a werewolf. Okay, it's like where a human takes on the attributes of a wolf. So it can be confusing because there's so many different types. But with the werewolves, what really interests me is I was sent a link to a show. It was called it was Bill Schnoebelen, I think is how you pronounce his last name, and he gives a lecture online, and it was with the Prophecy Club, I believe, and I think he's a rabbi today, but he used to be one of the heads, I believe, of the Brotherhood of Satan. With the Church of Satan. I know I'm saying that kind of giggle. It's like, wow, I mean, it's far out, but he talks about how once you reach a certain level, once you reach a certain level of the brotherhood, he said, you can choose to become either a werewolf or a vampire.
Yes.
So he said that as you, and he gave his firsthand account because he decided to become a vampire. And he talks about this, and you can find this interview online. It's him giving a lecture. And this is always, I think about this all the time. When I think about vampires and werewolves, I think about what he said, because he said that some of the people will choose to become men mostly, I guess. So they choose to become werewolves, but it's really hard on your body and it hurts because you actually do become a wolf, and you have to do pretty horrible things as well. And he was talking about how they are actually used to, like, when the people turn from human to werewolf, they use them when they're going out to do their rituals in like a landfill or a place where they dump trash. They will have at least 2 of them that will turn into werewolves to guard the site as the others do the ritual there. And and they have to guard it by any means necessary. So if anybody comes up, including children, and he was telling a story about some children that rode up on their bicycles, and the werewolves hunted them down and got at least one of them. Okay, but he said that, but they use them as bodyguards and security, basically.
Yeah. The protectors of the system. Makes perfect sense. And yes, I've also been told that they do get to a stage where I think it also depends what area they choose to follow in the system, that they get to choose to be werewolves or vampires. I think it's called lycanthropy or lie something. I can't remember.
Lycanthropy. Yeah, lycanthropy.
Lycanthropy, that's right. And so they obviously have to choose whether they're going to go this way or that way. And yes, and also because Jessie was telling us not too long ago, she actually had a friend. He was a wolf in the system, and he literally from all the shape shifting and literally changing into a wolf, that their fingers, they have incredible problems with their bones and fingers and bodies after that, because of course, as you know, with all the shape shifting and changing and stuff that happens. So yeah, I mean, I know this does sound unbelievable to someone who would be listening to this for the first time, but for those of us who've been speaking with people for quite a while, who've lived in this dark world, it's not that foreign anymore. I mean, in the beginning, I was like, what? You know, especially hearing about Bush Senior, that has his the nickname of Timberwolf. That was why he was known to be a shape-shifting werewolf.
Well, there are, you know, within our military here in the United States, I've been talking about this more often now, but there are high-level Satanists in every sector of our government and our military here, from what I've been told.
Oh,
That's what I've been
definitely.
told.
Definitely. I think it has to happen when you're looking at that. And that's the shadow military and obviously the shadow government, because that's how they get taught, That's why they take the kids in at such a young age, and they will torture them and do these horrific SRA rituals on them, because that's part of what they have to learn, and then they go through the system for sure. It's not a that's not I think that is the order of the day. It is just the way that it is. And yeah, they've got to go through their certain rituals. The kids usually at 12 years old, that's when they go through their first ritual, where they now become responsible. And that's the first time they actually unalive someone. That's the Baltimore pool. That's where they do it in. And they unalive someone, and then they cannibalize the person they've just unalived. And that would be their first act of taking responsibility, being responsible for the act of cannibalism, which is then obviously, it takes you into the dark. And after that, you become a responsible person for your actions. Before that, you're still considered a child. And then you're not really responsible, because that's usually when, but the adults are going to impose so much of that on you up until that 12-year-old ritual, that you really don't have a choice anymore. And that's disgusting. I mean, you must see, if you speak to Caleb, who's been in a wild hunt. Oh no, it's horrific, with these creatures that come through the portals and literally hunt the kids. And mythological creatures, the dark ones. It's insane.
Whoa. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned portals, because that's something else that I figured we could talk about today, of course. But there are a lot of cryptids sightings at places where there's been a lot of bloodshed. Speaking of blood, and rituals, battlefields. Battlefields. We had, of course, we had the Civil War fought here in the United States, and a lot of the battles happened in the state where I live, in Georgia, and all over the southeastern part of the country here. And a lot of Indian, Native American land disputes and things like that have gone on here. And the Revolutionary War, was fought here. And so a lot of bloodshed has happened here. And Lord knows what happened before. I don't think that our history, what they've told us, is what actually happened here. So there's no telling what all has happened on this land that's been hidden and covered up from us. But where some of these battles did happen, we have a lot of cryptid sightings, and it's not the good kind. It is werewolf sightings and dogman sightings and dark entities that have been seen eating corpses of humans.
What does the dogman do? What is the dogman about? I mean, I know what the werewolves are about and the vamps, but what does the dogman do?
The dogmen seem to be generally not violent, in my opinion. I mean, from all the stories that I've gathered from everybody, and I have remote viewed them. I've remote viewed many cases of suspected dogman attacks. There's maybe one or two of the cases that I was given did involve dogman. The others, when they were suspected of being a dogman attack, it was something else. A lot of times they are large cats that have attacked someone, and because they kind of attack similarly to what a dogman would do, according to what I've been told. But the ones that do attack have some sort of connection to secret agencies and underground facilities. Now, the ones
body with the dog head.
They have dog legs. It's like a human torso. A human torso, and the hands are not even human. The hands look like raccoon hands. They're always described as looking like raccoon hands, but they have 5 digits on each hand, but they look like raccoons, and they have little claws, the nails at the end of their hands, of their fingers. But generally, when they encounter a dogman, they usually are not violent, and they speak telepathically. Yeah. And sometimes they will speak in one word. They will say someone's name, because a lot of times they actually live on the property and inhabit the same area probably their whole lives. And so the people who live on properties where there are dogmen being seen, the dogmen seem to know them quite well. So they stay in the shadows, and they know the families, and they will. I know a person who said that sometimes at night, the dogman that lived on their property would go up to their windows, and his mother had a air conditioning unit in her window. And the creature, the dogman, would go up to it and say, Mary. It would like say her name through where the window was at night. She could hear it. So they can speak, but they don't speak in full sentences and things like that, according to what I've been told. Now, the werewolves are different because the werewolves can speak and do have full conversations in English.
Wow.
Okay. From what I've been told.
It would make sense that the werewolves are hybrids then, half
Could
dog
be.
or whatever, that half wolf, half
Yeah.
human. And it would make sense to me that they would have created hybrids from that. It would really make sense that they would have then used that DNA and what have you to create these creatures of the night, because that's what they do. They really get a kick out of doing that. Would the Dogman not be related to some of the Native American tribes?
Oh, I love that you asked that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did a show on that Saturday night, actually. And a good friend of mine, he lives in an area in Kentucky, here in the United States, near a very well-known national forest. It's called a recreation area, but it was designated, it's federal land. It's called the Land Between the Lakes. And he does a lot of his cryptid field research there, and he's had several dogman encounters, at least 2 that I know of for sure. One of them, he encountered what he thought was a deer at first. It looked like a deer, and it like a tan colored hide, like fur, and then a white tuft down on its neck is what he thought he was looking at first, until he realized it was actually a dog, like a coyote, which had smeared paint down its face. It had white paint, like it had taken its hands and gone like this, and then down its throat, down its neck. And so it was trying to camouflage itself to look like a deer. Now, was it trying to hunt deer, or was it trying to look like a deer to fool any human that would see it? That's the question. However, he did see it. And so we did a show Saturday night, he and I, and a good friend of mine who is a Native American medicine man. He and I, he's a good friend of mine, and I kind of consult with him when it comes to me going out in the woods and investigating skinwalker sightings and things like that. I've done that before, okay, up in Tennessee. And so I consult with him before I do things like that. And he was telling me that he was really happy that we were talking about this, because there is an indigenous connection to the dogmen,
right?
The dog women. And he told me what it was. If you'd like to hear it.
I'd love to hear it, because I've got a theory as well. Please go ahead.
Okay, so my friend, his name is William Nighthawk, and he actually has a podcast called Nighthawk High Strangeness on YouTube. And so he said that the connection is that the cryptids, the things that I encounter in the woods, like the Sasquatch, dogmen, elementals, okay, even reptilians, have been, over the years, for centuries, have been summoned to protect the sacred sites of the indigenous people here. And he says that they protect these sites by any means necessary. And he said a lot of it will stem back to when he said when the white men came and removed a lot of the indigenous people out of their lands here all over the country, mostly a lot in the South, and relocated them. Unfortunately, that they cursed the lands, okay, a lot of them, and he said there's a fine line between blessing and cursing, basically, and it can either be seen as a blessing or a curse, but they cursed the land to where these are grave sites, sacred sites, needed to be protected at all costs, the graveyards especially, and so there are things like the dogman that have been summoned to protect that area. Now that explains a lot, because that was the missing link that I was looking for, because we get a lot of dogman reports at Indian burial mounds.
Yes.
Well, this is why. Okay, this is why they're there to protect.
And also, I think I was speaking to someone a little while ago. I can't remember how long ago, but also speaking about that. And literally when it came to fighting, they would then take the shape or they would like move into a circle or something or whatever shape the fight needed to take, right? Whichever positions they needed to take. And then they would literally transform, shapeshift into dogs and take on the dog mentality or the dog way of fighting as well, protecting. And if we look at dogs, it's really dogs protect. If you look at any dog, like, you have a dog, it protects you, it guards you, it's there and it makes a lot of sense. So, and that's when they were obviously at their most threatened, though. And as you say, makes sense that they are there now looking. You will see them a lot at the burial sites, because to me, it would seem that they would be protecting what is deemed as their sacred land. That's so, right. And it would make sense to me as well that when they were in the last bits of their fighting type thing, they took on the shape of the dogs as well. And literally telepathically. So it would make sense that they would speak telepathically, because that's how they would communicate. The Native American people are very good at that, right? Yes. Communicating telepathically, and then literally speaking. Oops. Where did Jessica go? She's back. Literally, communicating that way, and then, taking on that shape. And as you say, especially if they painting their faces and trying to camouflage themselves to look like a deer, whatever, it would make perfect sense. I mean, that's what the Native American people do, right?
Yeah. We actually talked a whole lot about camouflage and face paint and war paint and things like that. So we got really deep into that discussion on war paint, and even about women wearing makeup, such as myself. Okay. And with all of that.
Love to hear your take. But isn't there, hang on, which of the Egyptian gods takes on the dog face? What's his name? Isn't he
Anubis.
Yes, Anubis. Isn't he the god of death or something?
He is. I love Anubis. He's actually a jackal-headed man. So it's not really a dog, but it's a jackal, and he looks very much like a dog man. And so, that is brought up quite often, actually. So he is the protector of the underworld. Right. Yeah.
It would make perfect sense to me that all of that, because of course, especially if you're looking at the dogmans.
Dog people.
Dog people, taking care of the burial sites, right? They're taking care of that. But that's the Egyptian theory. So what's the talk about makeup? I'd like to hear your take on that as well.
Well, it was actually my guest, Mark. It was not just his theory, but with his research and everything, of course. Well, he was talking about women. It's almost like we're talking about magic. Okay, and how the paint on the animal can be interpreted as either being magical, it could be protection, it could be to scare. Okay, but he was talking about makeup on women, about how some say that it's sorcery, you know what I mean, and it's almost like deceiving people, because you take on another form, I guess, like when you put on makeup. And I was making I brought up the example of, I accidentally clicked on one of those videos on YouTube of a woman who looked absolutely beautiful, and she was covered in makeup, and then she took her makeup off and she looked like a completely different person.
Yeah.
I get those videos all the time now. Anytime I'm scrolling on Instagram, it's just like I get a million of those videos now because I clicked on that one. So don't click on those videos if you don't want to see a million of them. But he was just talking about how the paint, and we were showing different examples of war paint on the Native American people, and on their animals as well, and how some of the horses would be covered in paint, like handprints and circles around their eyes and the arrows and the squiggly lines, and how those all mean something. And it's almost like sigils. Okay, we made the connection to sigils and power symbols for protection and for power and for mystical abilities, supernatural abilities and stuff. So why would a dogman not be doing the same? There is a connection there with what the dogman, I mean, and like, what he said was it looked like it had taken its hands and smeared it down its face and down its neck like that. he could actually see it. You could see the fingers, you know. So
wow, makes perfect sense, especially when we're looking at and I've heard that the woman's makeup is this vanity thing that actually came from the Egyptians, right? Where women needed it to, and if you think about it, like, I mean, let's think about it. How many women don't use makeup to lure in somebody because we feel it makes us more attractive? Let's be honest, right?
it
So we
raises your
think,
vibration, right? It raises mine. It makes me feel better. You know, if I were to come on your show with no eye makeup on and no lipstick, I would feel weird. Okay. Because I would. I need a little powder on my face and I need some lipstick, and I don't have to have it, but it accentuates, you know, and it makes me feel better. So it in turn raises my vibration. It makes me feel more beautiful, okay, when I put that on. And so it changes it changes you.
but isn't that a false sense of something? I mean, if you're going to look at it really in the nuts and the bolts of whatever it is, doesn't that give us a false sense of raising our vibration? You know, would it not be just the right thing, or the most, you know, when you yourself as a person feel confident and whatever enough that you wouldn't need that, right?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, that's true. If you take your ego completely out of it, yes. But some of us still have a little bit of an ego.
I fully agree. Make no mistake. I mean, there are those. I have friends. I mean, you can go and see them. You can walk into their house at 6 o'clock in the morning. They would have just gotten out of bed and they look like $1 million. I'm like, then I'll say, why the heck do you even wear makeup? I mean, there are, and I must say, I just think there are so many women who are have a little bit of a blush or whatever, you know. The way I see makeup, it's here to accentuate your features and not change the way you look. Some people wear that base that cakes them like this, and I'm like, take that shit off your face.
Oh man,
you know?
I don't have time for that. I don't have time to do the contour and stuff. I think I don't know. To each her own or his own or whatever.
I agree. Wow, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, what a great conversation we're having. We're just kind of hitting an hour. Yeah. I don't know how you're doing for time, but is there anything you maybe just want to say, still end off in saying wrap up or whatever? Because I would really love to have you back to have more conversations like this for sure.
Thank you. I would love to come back anytime. Yeah, I think it's interesting that the things that we talked about today, they're all kind of related in some way, especially when it comes to even the portals and, you know, there are Dogman sightings in Alaska. I mean, I've been sent pictures of Dogmen in Alaska, and you know, it's all connected. And I think that there is the frequency thing that's going on, and I don't know, little people. We live in a very strange world. Okay, we live in a very strange world, and I think that a lot of these cryptids have always been here. By the way, some people say that Dogmen have been seen coming out of spaceships as well, and I know that's a whole other layer to all of this. But with the North American Dogman Project, I had the head of that on my show. His name's Jody Cook, and he said that he's taken reports of dog-headed men not only working with like dog-headed men dressed in like military uniforms, okay, but some of them coming out of like UFOs and stuff. So it's my opinion.
I think they're real UFOs, and I think there's NASA UFOs as well.
Yes.
I think NASA has emulated the proper UFOs, and I think that's to confuse. I definitely do believe there are proper aliens and UFOs and stuff like that, but I also think there's ones that is created by the shadow military. That's for sure. So it'd be interesting to know if it's a NASA project, right, or if it's the real McCoy.
Oh,
it would make sense, though. It would make sense. But I mean, yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, my mind is kind of like going off at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just have a question, before you go. Has Jessica reviewed Leviathan? Is that? I've been hearing about Leviathan. Like, I know about the Leviathan spirit.
Okay, and I actually saw that some people were calling that mass that came out of Antarctica Leviathan. Now I'm not sure exactly what the connection is. I don't know what that is or what it means. I have remote viewed that, by the way. That was one of my targets this past week. Was that mass that came out of Antarctica, and I'm going to be doing a show on that Thursday night. So I don't want to give all that away right now, but
cool,
there's something people were calling that the Leviathan. So I don't know exactly. I don't have details on any of it yet, but that was given to me as a target. So tune in Thursday.
Yeah, on your show.
On my show, yes, on my channel, the Cryptid Huntress.
Well, the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube, guys. I've put all the details there on the bottom, and I've also given you her website, so you guys can go and follow Jessica. I think it's amazing for you to, for everyone to do a binge watch on your channel as well. I think it's absolutely awesome. You've got some great guests on there, and well, you're going to be a guest on Aquarius Rising Africa again, that's for sure. And I just want to say to you, thank you so much for being with us this evening as well. I really, really appreciate your being here. And we'll certainly have you back. So watch the space, guys, for when we're advertising again. And yeah, anything else you want to say just to wrap up before we bid each other farewell?
Yeah, you guys just be safe out there. Okay, just be aware that there's a lot of strange things out there, and don't live in fear. Don't live in fear. Go out and have some fun. Do something that scares the heck out of you sometime soon too, because that's what we all need to be doing, just enjoying life and not giving into all the fear and stuff. And I know you and I have talked about some weird stuff today, and it can be a scary world. Don't live in fear. Yeah,
I love it. And not everything is bad, right, guys? Just because we're not aware of it, and because let's think about it. We have been kept in this little bubble. We've been taught there's only, how many people believe that the only planet in this universe is Earth? I mean, right? So many people believe, and more people are now waking up to the fact that this is, wow, this is a crazy place we're living in. The Earth has so many different dimensions. There are so many different life forms that actually reside here with us, and out of our realm as well. So let's just enjoy it. Research, keep your mind open at all times. I always say, an open mind is a beautiful thing to have. It's when you shut yourself down and you're looking through your little blinkers, that's when we get into trouble, really. So just enjoy. And if something's unusual and you haven't heard or seen of it before, doesn't make it bad or of the devil.
Right. Right. Good,
Wow.
good and evil, good and bad, or whatever. It's all like relative terms and stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. There are things that are unusual. I mean, and I do believe God has created everything. God is simply, or the creator, whatever you choose to call it, has so much intelligence. There's no ways that God is only capable of creating one race called the humans. Yeah. No, don't agree with that. We are so multifaceted, and this world we're living in is so multifaceted. So enjoy it, research, go and find out as much as what you can, and enjoy life. That's what it's about, right? Absolutely. Yay, guys and girls. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Jessica. I'm going to chat you off air now quickly. God bless you all, everybody. Take good care, and I will see you tomorrow. We don't have Jessie on this week, but Bryce and I will be on tomorrow again, talking about Chad Daybell and what's happening in Utah with all those shenanigans going on there. Cool. Interesting world we live in, that's for sure. Humans behaving badly. That's what we're talking about tomorrow. Humans behaving badly. God bless you all, everybody. See you soon. Ciao, guys.